Buckle up, everyone, because this week's cybersecurity news is a wild ride.
Yeah, no kidding.
Seriously, though, almost 80% of Microsoft 365 users
Wow.
faced at least one account takeover attempt just last year.
That is a crazy number, and it really shows how much more sophisticated
Right.
these attacks are becoming.
Absolutely. And speaking of sophistication, what's really caught my attention is how attackers are using legitimate tools to kind of fly under the radar.
It's a huge trend. We're seeing more and more cases of things like Go Resty, Node Fetch Axios being used for account takeovers.
Wow.
And these are tools that developers use all the time.
Everyday tools.
So they don't trip those typical security alarms.
So it's almost like hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. And that makes detecting and preventing them way harder.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And this whole thing with everyday tools being used maliciously, I mean, it really speaks to a bigger trend we're seeing, right?
Absolutely.
Where the lines between legitimate and malicious activity are getting blurrier and blurrier.
It's scary how sophisticated these attacks are becoming.
Okay, so that's something to watch out for. But before we get too deep in the technical weeds, let's zoom out a bit and look at some of the big stories making headlines this week.
Sounds good.
First up, we've got the DeepSeek saga, which seems to take a new turn every single day.
Every day.
Just for anyone who hasn't been following along.
Right.
DeepSeek is this AI chatbot that's been making waves, both for its impressive capabilities and for its potential security risks.
Yeah, and this week, the story has gone international.
I saw that.
With governments like Australia banning DeepSeek from their systems.
It's a pretty big deal when governments start taking action like that.
Absolutely. They're citing national security concerns and the risk of data leaks.
Which is understandable, considering DeepSeek accidentally exposed a ton of sensitive data online.
Oh, yeah, I've read about that.
Over 1 million lines of code, software keys, user prompts, even chat logs, all just sitting out there on the open internet for anyone to grab.
Cybersecurity nightmare.
Absolutely a nightmare. And even though DeepSeek moved quickly to secure the data once they found the vulnerability, this whole incident really raises some serious concerns about AI security in general.
Yeah. If a company like DeepSeek with all their resources can have a slip-up like this, it makes you wonder what's going on with smaller AI developers.
Absolutely. And it's not just about technical security either. It's about who has access to all this data and how it could be used.
That's the big question.
And, DeepSeek has been accused of having ties to the Chinese government.
Oh, right. I remember that.
Faroot Security claims they found some hidden code in DeepSeek that sends user data to cmpassport.com, which is the online registry for China Mobile.
A state-owned company.
Exactly.
That's a serious accusation.
It really is. And it brings up the whole issue of AI development and data privacy. If user data is being sent to foreign governments without people knowing or consenting, that's a big problem.
For sure. A huge problem.
It makes you wonder if we need stricter regulations around AI development and data security, especially as these technologies become more powerful.
Absolutely. Especially as they become more integrated into our lives.
This whole situation with DeepSeek really shows the need for more transparency and accountability in the AI industry.
I agree. We need to know where our data is going, who has access to it, and how it's being used.
If not, we're setting ourselves up for some potentially disastrous consequences.
No doubt about it.
It's almost like we're at a crossroads with AI.
I think you're right.
On one hand, it has amazing potential for good.
So much potential.
But on the other hand, there are some very real risks that we need to address head on.
And we need to address them now.
I completely agree.
Hey,
and speaking of addressing things head on, I think the AI Action Summit in France is going to be huge.
Oh, yeah, that's coming up soon, isn't it?
It is. With almost 100 nations coming together to talk about these issues.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it, what actions they decide to take.
I hope it's more than just talk.
Me too.
Yeah.
We need action on this front.
Absolutely. We do. All right, so before the break, we were talking about, those scammers, the victims, the lone wolf hackers.
Like a human side of things.
Exactly. But now let's dig into some of the more technical stuff from this week.
Sounds good.
Starting with that vulnerability in the popular 7-Zip software.
Oh, yeah. That one caught a lot of people by surprise.
It did, especially since 7-Zip is so widely used.
Yeah. So can you break down what happened there?
Sure. So the vulnerability was all about how 7-Zip handled certain types of files.
Okay.
Specifically ones with that .7-Zip extension.
Got it.
Attackers were able to create malicious files that exploited this vulnerability.
Okay.
To bypass Windows's Mark of the Web security feature.
Mark of the Web. Not sure everyone's familiar with that.
Right. So Mark of the Web is a Windows security feature. Okay. That basically flags files downloaded from the internet as untrustworthy.
Okay.
So when you open a file with this flag, Windows usually gives you a warning.
Well, heads up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, proceed with caution.
Right.
And this helps prevent people from opening those malicious files that could, harm their system.
So in this case, a 7-Zip vulnerability let attackers sneak those bad files past that check.
Exactly.
Making them look safe to open.
Right. It's sneaky but clever.
And especially concerning because 7-Zip is often used to open compressed archives.
Absolutely. And those are a popular way for attackers to spread malware.
So they're disguising those malicious files as harmless archives.
Yeah. Increasing the chances that people will open them without thinking twice.
That is very clever. I'll give them that. But good news is this vulnerability has been patched, right?
Yes. 7-Zip did release a patch.
So we're all good now.
Well, as long as people have updated their software.
There's the catch.
Yeah, the problem is a lot of people might not have updated right away.
I know I'm guilty of that sometimes.
It happens. And this vulnerability was actually around for months before the patch came out.
Really?
So attackers had a big window of opportunity.
Wow, that's a good reminder for all of us.
Definitely.
To stay on top of those software updates.
It's crucial. You can't just install security software and call it a day.
Set it and forget it doesn't work.
Nope. You got to stay updated with those patches.
To stay protected against the latest threats.
Absolutely. Vulnerabilities are discovered all the time.
Yeah, seems like every day.
And attackers are always looking for ways to take advantage of them.
So true.
Best way to protect yourself is to keep everything updated.
Everything.
Your operating system, your apps, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, so it's not just us regular folks who need to be careful about updates.
Right. Organizations need to have good patch management processes, too.
To make sure their whole system is protected.
Exactly. Because even one unpatched system can be an entry point for attackers.
And from there, they can compromise the whole network.
Exactly. Patch management is so important for good cybersecurity.
It really is. And the 7-Zip vulnerability is a perfect example.
Couldn't agree more. The patch was there, but if organizations didn't apply it quickly...
They were still vulnerable.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the 7-Zip issue and how important patch management is. What else is on your mind this week in terms of threats?
Well, there's been some interesting stuff happening with CISA.
CISA.
The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
Right.
They just added 4 new vulnerabilities to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog.
The KE catalog.
Yep. And these are vulnerabilities that CISA knows are being actively exploited.
So they're out there in the wild.
Exactly. So it's really important for organizations to know about them.
And take action to protect themselves.
Absolutely.
Now, for anyone who's not familiar, what exactly is the KEV catalog and why should we care?
So the KEV catalog is basically a list of vulnerabilities that CISA has decided are a big risk to federal agencies and critical infrastructure. CISA can actually mandate that federal agencies patch these vulnerabilities.
Within a certain time frame.
Right. And they also strongly encourage everyone else in the private sector to take action.
So it's like CISA's way of prioritizing the most urgent threats.
Exactly. Making sure organizations are focusing on the right things.
Okay. Makes sense. So what are these 4 new vulnerabilities that they've added?
Well, one of them affects Apache OFBiz, which is an open source ERP system.
ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning.
That's the one. And this vulnerability could let attackers run any code they want on vulnerable systems.
Wow. So they could take complete control of the server.
Yeah, pretty serious stuff.
What about the other vulnerabilities?
Another one affects Microsoft.NET Framework.
Okay, I've heard of that.
It's a software development platform that tons of apps use.
Right.
This vulnerability could allow attackers to bypass security and get access to sensitive data.
Another big risk there.
Definitely.
And the last 2?
Those both affect Passler PRTG Network Monitor, which is a popular network monitoring tool.
Got it.
These vulnerabilities could let attackers run their own code or gain unauthorized access to sensitive info.
So we've got vulnerabilities affecting ERP systems, software development platforms, network monitoring tools.
It seems like nowhere is safe.
It really does. So what's the takeaway here?
The takeaway is that you need a multi-layered approach to cybersecurity.
Multiple layers of protection.
Exactly. You can't rely on just one solution or one vendor.
So you need a mix of preventative measures, detective controls, and incident response capability.
Yes, to really protect your systems effectively.
We've covered a ton today. From specific vulnerabilities and data breaches to those broader trends that are shaping the cybersecurity landscape.
It's a lot to keep up with.
As we wrap up, I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
What are the long-term implications of all this?
You know, if we connect all the dots, I think we're seeing a fundamental shift in the threat landscape. Those lines between nation-states, cybercriminals, and hacktivists, they're blurring.
Interesting.
And the reasons behind attacks are getting harder to predict.
So it's not just about stealing data for money anymore.
Right. It goes way beyond that.
What else are we seeing?
We're seeing attacks driven by political agendas, by espionage.
Wow.
Sometimes even just pure disruption.
And with AI becoming more powerful, the potential for these attacks to become even more sophisticated and harder to defend against is growing rapidly.
Exponentially.
We're already seeing it with AI-powered phishing campaigns and malware that can adapt and learn in real time.
It's scary stuff.
It is. It's like we're entering a new era of cyber warfare.
It feels that way.
Where the battles are fought in the digital world.
And the weapons are code.
Exactly.
And the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah. Think about it. Critical infrastructure, financial systems, democratic processes, all vulnerable.
And with AI, it's not hard to imagine a scenario where a nation-state could use it
to disrupt an election.
Yeah.
Or cripple a power grid.
The consequences could be devastating.
Absolute catastrophic.
So what can we do?
Well, we didn't say we're destined to always be playing catch-up. But we need a major change in how we think about cybersecurity.
Oh, okay.
We need to move past that reactive approach.
Right, just responding to attacks after they happen.
Exactly. We need to be more proactive and adaptable.
Proactive and adaptable. What does that look like in practice?
It means investing in those cutting-edge technologies.
Like AI-powered threat detection.
Yeah, and advanced behavioral analytics.
But technology isn't everything.
You're right. It also means creating a culture of cybersecurity awareness.
At every level.
From individuals to organizations.
We need to educate people about the risks, train employees on best practices.
Absolutely. And empower leaders to make cybersecurity a top priority.
Makes sense. But it sounds like a huge task.
It is a huge challenge.
Where do we even start?
I think collaboration is key. We can't fight this alone.
We need to work together, share information pool resources, and develop innovative solutions.
So governments working with the private sector researchers across borders.
Exactly. Everyone needs to be involved.
And individuals taking responsibility for their own digital hygiene.
It's a shared responsibility.
We're all in this together.
We are. And the sooner we realize that, the better prepared we'll be.
To face those challenges ahead.
It's a global issue.
That requires global cooperation.
Exactly.
It's a bit daunting.
It is.
But also empowering in a way.
Yeah.
If we all do our part, if we all work together, we can actually make a difference.
We can make the digital world safer for everyone.
Absolutely. It's not going to be easy.
It won't be.
But it's a fight worth fighting.
The stakes are too high to settle for anything less.
You've given us a lot to think about today. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just 3 things. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay curious.
Good advice.
The world of cybersecurity never stands still, so we have to keep learning, keep questioning.
Keep pushing the boundaries. Great advice.
Yeah.
And for more in-depth analysis, job postings, and industry reports,
make sure to check out Cybersecurity HQ.
And don't forget to subscribe to our weekly newsletter read by over 70,000 cybersecurity professionals.
Just like you.
That's Cybersecurity HQ, your hub for jobs, reports, news, and a newsletter read by 70,000 plus professionals weekly.